Hey everyone, welcome back. So we are continuing with our series on exploring behavior and what's underneath it. So today we're going to talk about ADD, ADHD. It stands for Attention Deficit Disorder or Deficit Hyperactive Disorder. And so these two disorders, they get tossed around quite a bit now, I feel like, with kids. And some people are very much on the side of, we are over-medicating children, we're under-medicating, it's just, again, one of those really controversial things. But the way that I like to, think about it is when we're talking about attention deficit, what does that mean, right? Like attention deficit. So it's that inability of that upstairs, that very front portion of our brain to really hone in on what we need to focus, to help us filter out all these other stimuli that are coming at us, all that kind of stuff. So that's really what it is at the heart of it. And it can look different for different kids, right? Some kids it's the boy who's, bouncing off the walls and couldn't sit still if his life depended on it. That could definitely be ADHD. Or it could be the little girl in the back row who colors all through class and doesn't hear a word the teacher says, but isn't very disruptive.
Right.
So it looks different for everybody. And I think that's part of why there can be so much, confusion and controversy around this diagnosis and how it's treated. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know you have some personal experience with this one.
I actually have ADHD. And I just discovered this. I mean, I'm, in my 40s. So back in the 80s, when I was in elementary school, I was the girl in the back drawing, not focusing, looking out the window. But I wasn't a disturbance. And my particular age growing up, we learned to comply.
Yeah.
We just had to. There was no IPPs or any special programs that teachers did for us. So it didn't show up until now. And I find that if I get too much information, I can't hold all that information in my head. That's kind of what happens. And my son, I believe both my sons, but my one son for sure has ADHD as well. And I'm actually reading a very fascinating book called He's Not Lazy. And it's about how, boys that are going into their teen years, teenage boys who have ADHD, may play a lot of video games because their brain can't handle too much homework or information, and they need that downtime. So my son is thrilled I'm reading this book because it's pro video game.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously within reason.
Yes.
But just explaining why they might need that. And I love what you say about ADHD, about the brain integration.
Yeah, so that's really one of the ways that I like to look at it. And as our previous episode, if you watched it, we kind of talked about just the different parts of the brain and what their jobs are. But with ADD or ADHD, we're really talking about that prefrontal cortex. So that's the part that's just behind the forehead, or the upstairs brain. And its job, it's kind of like the conductor of an orchestra. So it has to be paying attention to all these different sounds and be able to keep everybody working together and following the same, line of music. That's essentially a conductor's role. But what happens in ADHD or ADD is we have this conductor who it just can't hold all of it. It's just too much. Right? So that's when you get kids and they all sort of, react in different ways. You get the kid who will zone out playing video games, or the kid who will have to do something physical to help them discharge all this energy and this stimulus, right? So it does look a little bit different. But essentially what we want to do as parents, caregivers, is we want to find ways to help promote the development of that upstairs part of the brain. And how do we integrate that with the lower brain? So in some ways, that's medication. And that's essentially what ADD medication does, is it's actually a stimulant, which is really funny because when you tell that to people, they're like, what? This kid is bouncing off the walls and you want to give him like a stimulant? I'm like, actually, yeah. Because what it does is it kind of kicks in and it tells this upstairs part of the brain, like, hey, wake up, come on, you got some work to do here. So that's what it's doing. And we really want to also just advocate that whatever a parent chooses, whether to put their child on medication or not, that it's okay.
It's okay.
And it's absolutely your choice and what's best for your child. And, we really don't believe in telling parents that they're right or wrong for doing so. You know your kid the best. And anyone who tells you otherwise needs to take a step back. Right? Yes.
Yes.
So, but in, thinking about some non-medication or other ways that we can help kids with that part of the brain, it's kind of like you said, it's finding those activities. They're going to help regulate and focus them. Their attention. So for a lot of kids, it can be sensory stuff, right? Like whether it's, fidget spinners, oh my goodness, or something like a stress ball or a slinky, or just having lights to look at, like whatever it is, you got to find something that's going to work for your kid. I know one kid that I used to work with actually, and what really helped them regulate was a sense of like deep pressure. So they had this bean bag, and it was like a stuffed animal bean bag. It was quite heavy, and they would just put it on their lap, and all of a sudden it just helped them focus. It was enough to just give them like that sensation. So there are some really cool, creative ways that we can help kids deal with this.
That's neat.
Yeah, and aside from medication or whatever formal treatments you want to do, but definitely there can be a negative stigma around ADD, ADHD, same as ODD, any of these disorders.
And I think if our children know, again, that we are seeking to understand them, I know attunement is a big thing. Yeah. Attuning meaning like I'm actually giving you my full attention. I'm connecting with you. That can really help as well. Because one thing I learned when my son was young, I read Gabor Mate's book, The Origins of ADD.
Yeah.
And
Scattered Minds. Right?
Scattered Minds.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. It was such a great book. However, it was sad for me because it talked about the attunement that we give to a baby and how that really helps with their prefrontal cortex development when they're young. And I realized everything he said in there I was supposed to have done when my son was a baby. I didn't do. And so I had to read that with a lens of, but there's hope. I can attune to my son. When my son was born, I was not doing well. I was postpartum depression. I had moved to a new city. I didn't know anybody. And so, of course, there's my son now with this prefrontal cortex slowing down his development. But now, with connection, with doing activities together, that really helps as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I can only imagine too just how frustrating it is sometimes as teachers, parents, caregivers, when you have a kid who's not focused and you've got to get stuff done, you don't have, right? Especially, teachers in classrooms too. You've got 50 minutes to get this lesson and here's this kid who's not paying attention. That can be so challenging. But it's amazing what that one little moment of like getting down on their level, looking him in the eye, whoa, buddy, what's going on for you? It seems like things are going really fast. How can we slow this down? How can we bring you back here? Let's come back to this moment. What's happening? Yes. Just those little moments of attuning and letting them know that you're there, you're on their side. You're not going to be this, heartless taskmaster who's standing over them like,
yes.
Get it done. And they really just can't.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't want to.
Right.
They can't.
Yes. And so that helps.
Yeah. They need us in many ways, just, as we talked about in our last video, but they really need parents, teachers, caregivers to help them be that prefrontal cortex for them.
Yes.
Until it develops fully.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Well, thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.